On the eve of the public offering, what happens? I get a knock. May 13th, 1997, I get a knock on my door, 10 o'clock at night. And who's standing there before me? Better than the sheriff. The FBI. My good friends, the FBI. And they're wondering if I'm the son of General Mansour, who was the chief of staff under the Shah's army, 50 years ago. So this is not a good beginning. So it takes us about 3 months to figure out that the FBI and the insurance companies had combined their forces, and they were taping me and all the practitioners. 350 hours of tape. And only revealed to us 4 years later, of course. 4 years of battling civil lawsuits and government putting pressure on us because allegedly I was a criminal and allegedly I was creating healthcare fraud. Healthcare fraud is when you have an acupuncturist in your clinical practice working with an MD. That's fraud. It was fraud in 1997 and it's fraud today. Amazing, huh? Amazing. I didn't know that.
That's hardly anybody in the United States knows that.
Nobody knows that, huh? It's fraudulent. So if you have an acupuncturist working with an MD and you jointly submit a bill to an insurance company, Medicare, Medicaid, Labor and Industries, you have committed a felony and you have $250,000 fine waiting for you and 5 years of a sentence. Now, I was going based on what the Insurance Commission of the State of Washington had mandated a year before, and they had said, look, we're going to be the first state in the union that accepts alternative and complementary medicine, and we're going to have the insurance companies all pay for it. The second they declared that, all the insurance companies sued the commissioner. And so in and out of court, in and out of court. And we were supporting the commissioner because I believe that medicine has to expand beyond allopathic science. There are thousands of ways to heal the body, and conventional medicine, surgery-based medicine, pharmacy-based medicine is only a component of it. Maybe 1, maybe 2%. 98% of medicine is non-allopathic medicine. 98% of healing is non-allopathic science. And so, do we have a monopoly? Are we living in a monopoly? Absolutely. It took me 4 years to understand what kind of a monopoly I was living in. And finally, on the 11th hour, when the clinics had all shut down, we had 12 clinics, 6 major clinics, and 6 satellites, 105,000 patient visits every year, the largest practice in the state of Washington, and now I believe was the largest, or potentially is the largest practice ever doing integrated medicine at that scale. Of course the government wanted to take me down. You kidding me? Have this guy sell insurance and then go public? Forget it. So I get a call from the attorney. We're 6 weeks out to the hearing, and we've been waiting for this hearing, my day in court. I'm waiting for it. Finally, the call comes. Come, bad news. I take my wife, we go there, we sit down, and she says, here's the offer. 6 weeks out, the government doesn't want to go to court. And they're giving you an opportunity to do a plea bargain. Do you know what a plea bargain is? Do you watch LA Law and Perry Mason and all the other shows? Boston Legal, Do you know that all of those shows represent less than 2.5% of the proceedings in our country? Did you know that? Did you know that less than 3% of the cases that go before the federal government and state governments go to court? Yes. So 97% of us will never see our day in court. The legal system that we have together here in this country is representing how many of us in court? Only 3%. I think we should bring down the system and reenact a new one, because just like the healthcare system, it's not working. And I didn't know that. I thought that I was going to have my day in court. I was going to fight the feds, tell them, look, it's illegal for you to have patients, my 15,000 subscribers, only be pushing pills. There are other tools. There are other remedies. And the federal government should not have a right to tell me, the practitioner, and my patient what I ought to and ought not to do. That's what I was going to stand there. And he said, okay, here's the case, and here's the choice. You have two choices. The government says, we'll give you a plea bargain. You sign the plea bargain within the next 12 hours. And we'll give you 3 years of prison in a federal prison camp and charge you $1 million of restitution, a fine. And I said, what's the other choice? He said, the other choice is a lot worse. They'll just take you down. They'll put you in maximum security in Florida, so 3,000 miles away, and give you a minimum sentence of 10 years. And because they don't want to go to court. The court is going to take between 6 to 8 months, and they'd rather take their chances and give you the plea bargain right now. So, of course, you know, I'm a scholar who has been fighting now for 4 years, and I'm entrenched in Gandhian philosophy. I'm saying, look, I'm going to go to prison. I'll take 10 years. And these two attorneys just bolted. They were so upset, they just bolted out of the room. They said, you know, you're out of your frickin' mind. We're giving you an offer to settle this, put it behind you. They left the room. They said, look, you know, the two of you sort this out. And my wife said, look, 10 years is too long. Maximum security means I can't see you. The kids, you know, are going to miss you. This is not a good life. We can do 3 years. Don't even think about it. Do your Gandhi stuff after you come out. It took us a while to figure this thing out, but I only had until 5 o'clock to determine this window of opportunity. I pled guilty to the charge of committing healthcare fraud and signed the plea bargain before 5 o'clock that day and subscribed to going to prison. And I asked the attorney to go to the U.S. attorney and say, I write this under one condition. You get my signature under one condition. So what's the condition? I said, I want to see you. I want to see all the people that have been on the other side of the bench, fighting me, putting me into prison, before I go to prison. And he called and he said, no, can't do. The deal is off. They've never done it with a felon in the history of this state, and they're not going to start with you. Fine, we'll go to court. And he heard me screaming that on the speakerphone. 2 minutes later, the U.S. attorney calls and says, okay, we're going to come. We're going to meet you in a couple of days. So we went and we saw the wall of feds behind bulletproof glasses. And I went behind the bulletproof glass, shake hands with all of them. They couldn't believe that we're actually doing this. They'd never seen anything like this. My wife and my two attorneys, we shook hands with everyone. Then we sat down. This was a meeting that I had called, so I was the one who had things to say. But before I spoke, the head of the Department of Justice, the head of the criminal division, I won't give his name, he stood up, very handsome gentleman. Never seen him, didn't know that he existed. And that's how these federal agencies work. They didn't know that he existed, and I wanted to know him. He stood up and he said, you know, Doc, I have a feeling that I'm not going to be speaking on behalf of everyone in this room, on my team. So what I'm going to be saying is an individual opinion. But as the boss, I'm going to tell you that what I'm going to do today and what we're agreeing to do has nothing to do with your race, nothing to do with your Middle Eastern heritage, nothing to do with your name. And maybe 10 years from now, I will kick myself for doing what you're doing because I recognize you as a pioneer. And while he's saying this, these other guys are just like shrinking, you know, saying, what's the boss saying? This is outrageous. He says, yeah, 10 years from now, I may look back and say, this was a dumb idea. I'll kick myself. And then he sat down and I told him what I needed to tell him, which wasn't as important. And I was on my way. I went to prison. 6 months into prison, I had a visitor who comes in And he says, "Doc, you've won." I'm looking at him, I'm, in my inmate suit with my number. I'm saying, "Look at me, I don't look like a winner." He says, No, stop joking. Yesterday, it wasn't headlines because it was meant not to be headlines. But you made headlines in medical history yesterday. So what happened? He said, "Well, remember those insurance companies that put you here? Your patients filed a class action lawsuit against all those companies for not delivering alternative and complementary health to them. And guess how much they got out of a court settlement? $130 million. So what's that got to do with me?" They said, "Well, frankly, nothing, because it went to your patients and to the subscribers, to 1 million. And it may affect your case. And it's now far more dangerous for you to stay in this prison. Two things you got to do, and as your attorney, as your friend, I'm going to tell you to change your name. Never practice medicine in the state of Washington. You got too many enemies there. Half of your enemies have left the state because they've gone bankrupt as a result of this. And, forget about medicine altogether. And make a shift. Do a lateral move to a different prison, because your life may be in danger here."